Hi everyone, it's Lynn Dion from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I thought it would be fun to create these little snowflake ornaments using some of the dies you may already have in your stash. We're going to be using some snowflake dies and some circle dies, so it's really that simple, and then we'll add a really pretty embossing folder to this. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's take a look at this really pretty snowflake set. This is the large snowflake die set from Art Impressions, and look at all these snowflakes you get. I mean, you just get a ton of these. I'm going to quickly cut those apart using the steel die cutters that Art Impressions is currently carrying. So I went ahead and separated all those dies, and then I'm going to grab these 5 snowflakes. For cardstock, I'm using the Pixie Dust Lawn Fawn Sparkle cardstock, and you can see how beautiful this is. And we're going to die cut these snowflakes. Just going to kind of position them on there, and then I'll run those through the Scenic Sidekick machine. Now, I will say run it through a couple of times just to make sure you get a good die cut, because these are very detailed. So what I like to do is just take a look at it before I take those dies off, just kind of see that it cut all the way through, and then I can go ahead and pop those out. And look at how beautiful these are. I just love this set. I think it's so pretty. I really think it's going to be a go-to set for me as far as snowflakes go. I just used my tool-in-one to pop out those little pieces, and now you can see up close how beautiful these are. I've got my circle dies, and you get a ton of these. This is the nested circle die set from Art Impressions, and this is a smaller set of circles, and it's designed to coordinate with the journals. It's part of the Art Impressions journal series. So what I'm doing here is trying to find the circle that will give me a little bit of space around that snowflake. So I'm going to go a little bit larger there, and that will be for the ornament portion of the card. So we're going to create some snowflake ornaments, and so I wanted to show you today basically a simple way of using the supplies that you may already have to create some simple ornaments. And so there you can see I'm just going to grab those circles that are just slightly larger than the snowflakes that I'm using. I've got for paper, I'm using the Valentine Journal paper pack. And this is a double-sided paper pack, and you can see all the beautiful patterns you get. So I just grabbed a nice selection of those patterns, and I'm going to go ahead and die cut these circles. And you can see again the really pretty double-sided pattern. So for that polka dot or that heart one, I'm going to flip it over and use the plaid as well. So I've got all of my paper cut, and now I can go ahead and run these circles through the Scenic Sidekick machine. So now that we have the circles die cut and ready to go, we can start to assemble our ornaments. I've got my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, and I'm just going to place some of that adhesive on the backs of each of these snowflakes, and just go ahead and attach these to the circles. Now we'll be adding some layers to these, so this is just the first layer of our snowflake ornament. Once I have that glued down, I'm just going to set that aside to dry. So I decided to just stick with the red and white pattern, but keep in mind you could use your beautiful greens, metallics. Your metallic cardstock would be absolutely gorgeous here. You could do this in blues and greens and pinks. So just kind of look through your stash of cardstock, and this is a great way to use up some of your scraps as well. Now I've got some 100-pound white cardstock, and I'm going to die cut each of those circles, and I die cut 2 extras for each of the ornaments. So I'm going to stack these up, and then we'll add that pattern paper on top, and that's going to give these ornaments a bit more dimension. Now you can stack up as many of these as you like. If you really want to give it a lot of dimension, you could stack up a few more. I'm going to go with just those couple extra layers in the background, and you can see what a difference that already makes. Now I'll set those aside for now and grab my 3D embossing folder. This is the Scenic Poinsettias. This is from Spellbinders, and the size of this is 5.5 by 8.5. So this is a gigantic folder, and I love that because we can do this bigger panel. So our card today will measure 5 inches by 7 inches. So that's what size this panel is. And then I'm running it through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. And I've got my platform, the embossing folder with the cardstock, and 2 pieces of cardboard. That I found wasn't quite enough, so I'm going to add a 3rd piece of cardboard. Now you'll want to use the sandwich that's appropriate for your specific machine, but I just want to warn you, if it's too tight, just make sure you back it out and start over. So you can kind of add pieces of cardstock as you need to. And take a look at this embossing folder. It is just absolutely gorgeous. I don't think the packaging does it justice because it is so beautiful. And I've got my Lumberjack Plaid Distress Oxide ink. I've got a blending brush, and I'm just going to go lightly around the edges just to frame this embossing folder a bit better. And you can see I'm just tapping off some of the excess before I go to my cardstock. Now keep in mind that all of the products I'm using today are listed and linked down below and also on my blog. So once I have a nice frame around this embossing folder, I'll give you a closer look at that. Now I want to spatter this, so I'm going to place a bit of that ink down on my glass media mat. I'm just spritzing that with a little bit of water from my Distress sprayer, and I'll go ahead and use a small paintbrush and spatter this. I'm not going to spatter it a lot. I just want to bring your eye into the middle a little bit more and kind of tie those colors, that red from the edges, into the center of that panel. Now I've got my Wink of Stella glitter pen. This is a clear glitter pen. Again, I'll just squeeze a little bit out onto my glass media mat. Then I'll go ahead and spatter this panel, and that's going to add some sparkle to this cardstock. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to add some more dimension to these snowflakes. I got to this point in the process and just thought they weren't quite dimensional enough for me, but you could certainly leave them the way that they are. So I'm going back to the snowflakes we already created, and then what I'm going to do is just add the centers to these. And I'm going to have to switch out that one on the right because I thought that center was a little too large, and I also wanted it to be a darker red so that it would stand out from that striped paper a little bit more. So I'm going to repeat the same process, adding a few layers of white cardstock and then adding my pattern paper and then the snowflake. So let's go ahead and die cut these. I'm still just deciding which little snowflake I like best here. And now I went ahead off camera and I die cut. So again, I've got the 2 layers of white. I've got my patterned plaid paper, and then we're going to add that snowflake. So sometimes as you're going along and creating your cards, you need to switch things up just to get it exactly the way that you want it. And these are so quick and easy to put together. You could just sit and create a ton of these and have these ready to go on a card. So this is a really simple process. So now I've got that nice new center for this one, that dark red. And then let's add the center to this other larger snowflake. And I'm definitely liking these better already. They really have a lot of dimension to them now. And then we can go ahead and add this plaid to this red heart one. And I'm going to set that other one aside. I'm thinking since it is left over, I may use it for like sealing up the envelope. So I'll just set that aside for now. And you can take a closer look at these. Now let's create the card base. Again, we're creating a 5x7 card. So this is a standard size card. So it'll fit in your 5x7 envelopes. And I'm just pressing that score line out with my bone folder. And let's position these ornaments on our card. Now I'm adding some sheer ribbon. This is about a 1/4 inch sheer ribbon, maybe slightly larger than that, but any ribbon you might have in your stash. And then I've got some foam tape and I'm adding it to the back of the ornament. I'm just going to peel that back just a little bit so I can get this ribbon on here. And then I'll place that backing right back over top so it doesn't stick to my card at this point. I'm just getting these ready so that I can position them on my card without them sticking down. So again, I'll add that foam tape, then I'll just peel back that backing just a little bit so that I can put the ribbon on there. I'll place that backing back down, and now we can just cut that ribbon down to size. We're going to be wrapping these back around to the back side of this card panel. So let's do that one more time. I'm just going to cut a little bit bigger piece of foam tape and then pop the ribbon on for this one. So it's good to kind of know the placement because then you'll know about how long to cut that ribbon. And then I'm just going to kind of position these around. Now, I know I need tape on the back to hold that ribbon down, so let's go ahead and add that for now. I've got some double-sided tape from scrapbook.com, and that's going to hold that ribbon nicely in place. I'm actually going to put 2 strips of it up at the top, and then just a strip of it around all 4 sides, and a few in the middle. Now, I like to use my Cricut weeding tool to press the backing down on the tape, and then I can just pull off that protective backing. Now, at this point, I should not have removed all of that backing at once, but I did so because I wanted to get that ribbon wrapped around to the back. And the card panel wanted to stick to my glass media mat, so I probably should have just removed that tape backing from the tape right at the top and gotten these into place and then did the backing on the rest of the card. But it worked out fine. So all I'm doing here is just positioning these and wrapping that ribbon around to the back and sticking it in place. This one I decided I wanted it to be a little bit further up on my card. So once I have that done, let's grab the card base, and since this is the exact same size as the card, we're just going to position that right down and tape that down. So now that that's taped down, I can easily remove the backing on the ornaments. I'm going to add a little bit of glue over the ribbon just to make sure it sticks down nicely. And then you want to pull that a little bit taut just to make sure that that ribbon is nice and straight. So here again, I'm just removing the backing. I'll add a little bit of glue to that and then pull that and tape that down. So now we have quite a bit of dimension. We've got a lot of texture and dimension actually, from the 3D embossing folder to the layers on our snowflake and then popping up these snowflakes. And then what I want to do is add some bows to the top of each of the ornaments. So all I'm going to do is cut a piece of that sheer ribbon and tie that on. Now at this point you could tie something else on here. You could tie some little bells on these. You could tie or create a little bit of a floral arrangement there at the top. So whatever you prefer to do. I've got this little banner die, and this is from the journal template die set. Again, this set is designed to create this cute little journal. It's part of the watercolor series from Art Impressions. But you guys know I use this all the time. I love all the little elements in this set, and there are a ton of them. And for the sentiment, I'm going to this sentiment set, and I'm going to just show you that that banner fits on several of these sentiments. And this is the Christmas sentiment set from Art Impressions. So let's grab some black cardstock. I'm going to remove the static from that because we're going to be doing some embossing. So I've got my pink and main anti-static powder brush. And then again, I'm going back to decide which sentiment I like the best. I decided to go with the one that says merry and bright, but a lot of these would work for this particular card. If you're making a bunch of cards, you could change it up using different sentiments on all of these. I've got my Versamark Watermark Ink Pad. So this is an embossing ink pad. Just going to put a little bit of ink on there. I like to do the embossing ink in a couple of layers. So I lightly add that ink and then I stamp it a second time. Now I've got my Ranger Super Fine Detail White Embossing Powder. We'll go ahead and place that powder on this panel. And then I'm just tapping away any excess. Now we can go ahead and heat set that with our heat tool. And that's going to give a nice bright white embossing to this panel. And I like the black against this red and white pattern. So let's go ahead and die cut this using that banner die. I'll tape it down with a little bit of tape. This is a temporary post-it tape. And then again, I'm going back to the Scenic Sidekick machine. Now let's just go back to that foam tape and add a little bit of that to the back. We'll pop this up as well. And again, I really like that contrast of the black and white against the red and white. But you could, again, certainly use some metallic cardstock here, whatever you prefer. I've got my Sparkletz red hearts from Buttons Galore and More, and I've got 3 of them. I'm going to add one to the center of each of these little ornaments. You could certainly add some rhinestones here. You could add some rhinestones to the little snowflakes as well. But I wanted to keep it fairly simple. And then I'll grab one of those sentiments from that same Christmas sentiment set for the inside of the card. I'm going to grab an acrylic block from my watercolor travel box, and you can see you get 3 acrylic blocks in that. You get the little box and you get a little watercolor palette as well. It's a great little tool to have if you travel a lot with your supplies. You can put your brushes in there and some of your markers in there. So it's a nice little travel tool. And that sentiment says, warmest wishes for a Merry Christmas. So that finishes off our card today. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.